Seoul sky had always felt different to Jihoon since the day he met Ara on the platform of Hongdae Station. On that spring afternoon, the air still held a gentle chill, while cherry blossoms began to fall like fragments of memories that had yet to be named. Ara stood there with her sketchbook pressed to her chest, waiting for a delayed train, her eyes following the lines of the rails as if the future might appear from them. Jihoon, who had just moved back to Seoul after years of studying abroad, never expected that such a simple encounter would change the way he saw a city he had long considered too fast for a hesitant heart. They started talking over trivial things, the delayed train and the best coffee around Hongdae. From that light conversation grew a habit of meeting without any official plans. They sat in small cafes with wide windows, watching people pass by while exchanging stories about dreams. They were not yet brave enough to speak aloud. Ara was a freelance illustrator who believed that cities had voices, and she tried to capture them through lines and colors. Jihoon worked as a content writer, crafting words for big brands, yet secretly wished to write honest stories about people. Beneath Seoul's sky, they found reflections of themselves in one another's reflections they had been searching for all along. Summer arrived with clinging heat and long nights. They walked along the Han River, buying ice cream from street vendors and laughing as it melted, faster than the stories they shared. City lights shimmered on the water's surface, and Ara said the reflections were like memories never exactly the same as reality, yet still beautiful. Jihoon nodded, realizing that every moment with Ara felt like a page he wanted to linger on before turning. But Seoul was also a city that taught distance. Busyness arrived without warning. Jihoon's workload piled up, while Ara received an offer for a small exhibition in Itaewon that demanded much of her time. They began to meet less often, short messages replacing long conversations. Between those pauses grew unspoken worries. Were their feelings strong enough to survive the city's relentless pace? One rainy night, they took shelter under the awning of a secondhand bookstore. The rain poured heavily, and for the first time, the silence between them felt heavy. Autumn changed Seoul's colors. Leaves in Namsan turned red and gold, and the air carried the scent of damp earth. Ara invited Jihoon to hike slowly, bringing a thermos of warm tea. At the top, they looked out over the sprawling city beneath a wide, clear sky. Ara confessed her fear of losing herself if she hoped too much. Jihoon, his voice nearly swallowed by the wind, admitted his fear of regret if he did not dare to choose. Under the same sky, they realized that love was not always about certainty, but about the courage to keep walking even when the path was winding. Time continued to move. Winter wrapped Seoul in a calm layer of thin snow. They built a small snowman in Ara's apartment courtyard, laughing as their hands reddened from the cold. Evenings were spent with warm soup and old films, talking about childhood and family. Jihoon wrote short stories about the city and to people learning to understand time, while Ara drew illustrations of Seoul's sky across different seasons. Those works became silent witnesses to the days they shared, days that were simple, yet filled with meaning. As the year turned, opportunities arrived carrying choices. Jihoon received a job offer outside the city, while Ara was offered an art residency in Bizen. The decision felt like a crossroads that forced them to pause. They walked through Gyeongbokgung on a quiet morning, the last snow melting on ancient stones. No grand promises were spoken, only an honest agreement not to hold each other back. They believed that what they had shared would not disappear, only change its form. The day of parting arrived without drama. At the same station where they first met, Seoul's sky looked bright. Ara handed Jihoon a small sketchbook filled with drawings of the city and one blank page at the end. "For the story that hasn't been written yet," she said. Jihoon smiled, realizing that a farewell was not the end of everything. The train moved and they waved, storing those days in the safest place within their hearts. Years later, when Jihoon returned to Seoul, He stood beneath the same sky. The city had changed, and so had he. He opened the sketchbook and wrote a simple sentence about two people who once shared their days under Seoul's sky. In the distance, city lights began to glow again. And Jihoon knew that although time kept moving forward, there were memories that would always find their way home like Seoul's sky, faithfully sheltering every story that had ever lived beneath it.